Hey guys, what is up? It is Dangeles, and welcome to episode 209 of Constructing Los Dangeles and the 2-year anniversary of the series. That's right guys, it's September 14th, 2015 today, and 2 years ago to the date, September 14th, 2013, the first episode of Constructing Los Dangeles was uploaded to this channel. So it's been a crazy ride, and today is the 2-year anniversary video. So for this video, I originally was going to do a recap tour on episode 210, but I've decided for this video that I'm actually going to move it up to today. So here on episode 209, we're going to do a recap of the whole city. That's what a lot of you suggested in the comments. And to put even more of a spin on it, I'm actually going to be recapping everything in the world from the very beginning, from episode 1 all the way to episode 209 in chronological order. So that is going to be the theme for today's video. We're just going to go through everything from the beginning to now. There's a lot of stuff in this world that's either been changed or removed, so we're going to skip those things, obviously. We're going to cover everything that's actually on the world, and we're going to get started with that right now. So we start off the tour with the default texture pack, guys, because after all, we've used 3 different texture packs mainly on this city. Starting off with the default, but don't worry, we don't have a whole lot to show with the default. I switched to the natural texture pack only a few episodes in, but the first thing that we built on this world that's still here is this place right here. This is a small skyscraper. At the time I thought it was huge, but right now it's probably one of the smallest, if not the smallest skyscraper on the city now. It's crazy how how much taller everything has gotten. But this was the first skyscraper that I did. I tried to make like a modern theme to it. It actually looks pretty good in the default texture pack with the blocks that I chose. Not so much the city. It's a little bit outdated, but I think it is very important to keep it just the way it is because it shows the history of the city. So this was the first ever skyscraper on Los Angeles. It's actually not even done yet on the interior. I'm going to be working on it actually really soon because I need to finish this thing up to have it completely done, and maybe we can do a final tour on it once all the interior has been put in. But this was the very first build here on Los Angeles. And then the second build that's still here is just right across the street, right below me right now, and that is the Sandstone Tower. So I actually worked on this last episode. And in the default texture pack, I think this thing actually looks pretty good. I do like sand and sandstone in the default texture pack. It does look really nice. So this is an extremely old build. Again, another one of those things that it's not a huge skyscraper, but it's a lot bigger than the first one. The interior, again, is not done on it yet, but all the floor plans are actually put in. I actually did manage to get that done. So now it's just about furnishing and just doing a few more updates to it. But that is the second skyscraper on the world, the second thing we did that's still here, and that's actually the only 2 things left that were built from start to finish in the default texture pack. So now we're going to be moving on to the natural to continue the tour. So the natural texture pack became the main texture pack on this world for about 40 episodes, from episode 10 to episode 50. During this time, built a lot of stuff, so we're going to go through that now, starting off with the Tinsel Tower. Right now it's customized for the city texture pack, and it actually looked a lot different than when I first built it. I had definitely updated this thing, and I actually did it very recently. So this thing was this was the 3rd skyscraper that I built on the world behind the first 2. And some of the other stuff that was built in the natural texture pack is on the other side of the world. The Green Mansion was the first house on the world. Well, technically it wasn't, but it's the first house that's actually still standing. We had a bunch of houses on the other side of the map that ended up getting covered up by the beach. I did end up moving the Tudor-style house, but it wasn't until later on in the series. So the Green Mansion was the first house that I built in the natural texture pack on this world. Still a pretty nice house. I'm not in love with it. It's not my favorite house in the world, but it's alright. And this was the first one we did. And then once we kind of finished this, then we went back over to the city, and we got started on the City Hall. After taking a little bit of time to work on some houses in the world, I came back to the city with only 3 skyscrapers. None of this stuff was here yet. And I started building the City Hall. Started in the natural texture pack. However, I think it looks a lot better in the city texture pack right now. I'm not a huge fan of the natural texture pack, so a lot of the stuff is not really built for that anymore. So a lot of the stuff doesn't really look too great. But this was one of the first buildings we did here in the city district, and we kind of started to branch away from the corner of the map and start to work inwards, I guess. And then right after we finished the City Hall exterior, the interior is actually done as well, and I'm going to be doing a tour of that soon. I did the interior actually really recently, so I kind of came back to it, and that's kind of a theme throughout the world. I'll start a build, maybe do the exterior, and then come back to it later. So I'll be doing like a full tour of this thing with the interior and everything in the city texture pack pretty soon as well. So stay tuned for that. And then over here was the next building we did, and this is a parking garage. This building is actually pretty good, and I haven't really made a whole lot of changes to it from the beginning. It's like a 5 or 6 level parking garage that kind of works for all of the surrounding buildings. So I guess the theater and then all the buildings on this block would use this parking garage so they could park, and as well as the city hall. So it was important for me to add a parking garage in the world because in a city you have to have places to park, and that is definitely a lot of parking in there. So we're going to fly back over to the other side of the world. So after building a few things in the city like the parking garage and the city hall, I started to shift my focus over to the western side of the world, and that was in the housing district. I really wanted to make a nice neighborhood space that was kind of like the suburban outskirts of the city, more or less. And I started off by building some modern houses. So now these were originally built in the natural texture pack, but I actually came back in and optimized them for the city texture pack. So as you can see, I'm using stone and things like that, and I would never use stone in the natural texture pack if I was going to build with it again. But this was the first one I did, this modern house. I actually worked on this thing on episode 25 on a 1-hour special video. That was pretty cool. And then after that, I moved over to this house on the other side of the street, which is titled the Weird House, and it's titled that because it's got kind of a bizarre shape right on the edge of the water. All these houses are furnished, and they've been done for a long time, so they've been toured, and they've been just kind of sitting here, and I haven't really found a need to change much about them because I think they're still pretty good to this day. So we have this building here, and then the last one we did, which is my favorite of the three, and that's this minimalistic one right here, which I believe is titled Dan's M&M house, which stands for modern and minimalistic. I really like this house. I think this is my favorite modern house on this world personally. I'm not a huge modern house builder, as you guys know, but this one definitely is one of my favorites. So again, all three of these are furnished. I think I actually just built those two over there, and then I came back and built this one later. I had some other houses in the middle of that. So really, like after I finished those two over there, I started to fly over here, and I finished the green mansion. And then I started to work on this house all the way over here. So this colonial house right here was kind of the next project. And along with this colonial house here, I also worked on this house, which is just another traditional house made out of spruce wood. Again, both of these are still pretty much optimized to the natural texture pack. That one doesn't necessarily look very good in the city. This one over here, actually, I think I did change a little bit so it looks better in the city texture pack. But mainly you're supposed to look at these houses in the natural. And in fact, there's a sign right here that says view in natural. So that was kind of what I was going for. I decided not to make too many major changes to this area because when you come back and look at it in the natural texture pack, it still looks very good and it's optimized for this texture pack. So after finishing those two houses, I kind of moved down the street, and I was really on a roll trying to build as many houses as I could because I love building houses. That's my favorite thing to do. And I built this house right here. This is a smaller version of the Tudor style house, which I'm going to show later on. That's just down the street. I love Tudor style houses, so I wanted to build the second one on the world. And again, this is another one of those view and natural. So they're all fully furnished on the interior. And I have the house tours for all of these if you want to check out them in more detail. But yeah, this is the house I built right after those two, and I kind of just continued to expand down this street. But I think I waited a little bit before I built the next two houses until I got to the city texture pack. I did build this log cabin over here in the snow biome in the natural texture pack, and this was one of the last few things that I built in the natural before we moved on to the city. I just have a few more things to show you guys. I did actually start this build over here in the natural texture pack, but I believe I finished it in the city. Or maybe no, you know what happened? I do remember this now. I started the lighthouse in the, originally this was going to be a lighthouse, but I decided to make kind of like a lighthouse connection house. Weird. It's kind of a bizarre design, but I still think it's pretty cool. So I had this lighthouse here originally built with, I think, white wool and sandstone, but once I switched to the city texture pack, I switched it out for light blue wool and some quartz. And I have to admit, this house actually still looks very, very good in the natural texture pack, maybe even better than it does in the city. Who knows? But it is optimized for the city texture pack, so we'll give a little bit. We'll show it again actually once I switch over. So that's pretty much it for the natural texture pack on this world. Once I started the Alpine mansion, that's when I made the permanent change to the city texture pack, and then pretty much everything since has been the city. Fun fact, I actually did start the stadium over here in the natural texture pack. However, I did a majority of it in the city texture pack, so we'll kind of go through it in full once we switch over to the city texture pack, and we're going to do that right now. So the reason why I switched to the city texture pack, because I felt like the blocks in it were best suited for my first mega project on this world, and that was the Alpine mansion. This thing is pretty much the most iconic build on this world, which is amazing with all the other stuff that we have, like the stadium and the Eclipse Tower and other things. But the Alpine Mansion, I think some people kind of forget that it's on Los Angeles because it's kind of tucked in the corner, but it is here and it's not going anywhere. This was the first thing I built in the city texture pack, like I said, and pretty much everything else on the world, including a majority of the city district, has been built with the city texture pack. I feel like this texture pack is the best for this world, and I've been using it for pretty much over 150 episodes, closing in on 160 now, which is kind of crazy. And I would never switch back because it's just perfect for this world, and everything is all optimized for it and looking very good. So the Alpine Mansion was kind of the beginning of that, and then many more things came after that. During the process of building the Alpine Mansion, I did take a little bit of a break from it to build the Farnsworth house. This is kind of a famous house outside of Chicago. It's like a modern minimalistic house out in the woods, and I just love that design. I think it's really cool. So I tried to replicate it in Minecraft to build it to the best of my ability. This was just a kind of a small side project that I worked on while I was, getting through the mega project known as the Alpine Mansion. So this was just another one of the houses in this area of the map, and it really capped off the entire neighborhood district. If you consider all these houses here, most of them built in the natural, and then I came back in and changed a little bit about them with the city. And then the Tudor style house we'll get to in just a little bit, but that kind of concluded everything in this area of the world, and then a lot more of my focus shifted back to the city to kind of add more and more skyscrapers. So after doing a lot of work on the neighborhood district and building a ton of houses on Los Angeles, I decided to reshift my focus after finishing the Alpine Mansion back to the city district and back to building skyscrapers. So this place right here on the corner was the first skyscraper that I built after finishing the Alpine Mansion, and it was really the beginning of kind of an explosion of buildings. I really focused on just adding a ton of skyscrapers to the place, and pretty much all of the stuff that you're going to see around the city kind of just, I guess, came right after this. So this was the start. It's just a brown apartment building. It's not done on the interior yet. We do have a restaurant on the first floor called Dan's Bistro. I really like that. I actually really like the design of this building with the sandstone and the brown wool. I think it's definitely a keeper. No need to change it ever, and it's kind of like a classic skyscraper on the world. It gets overlooked a little bit, but it's definitely a great design. And then I really just kind of, like I said, exploded into some other designs. So I moved over and got started with the Nether Bank of Los Angeles. Obviously, Nether Bank was a integral part of the CLD 200 skit. I think that's what it's kind of known for in this world. The bank part is completely furnished, including the vaults and the bank, like the main floor. Above that, with the office building above, I guess with the corporate tower for the bank has not been finished yet, but that's pretty much with most of the skyscrapers in the world. We're getting to that now. That's kind of like the point of the series that we're at, where we're starting to do some furnishing on the skyscrapers. And then moving on from that, I got into the Bone Meals corporate tower / supermarket. This is a crazy building that's inspired off the Willis Tower in Chicago. And again, I just kind of skyscraper. I just kind of just up and up and up. They just kept on growing. This one took a little bit of time to build and perfect the design. So I did start working on some other buildings during that time, like the McDonald's building. So we have a McDonald's restaurant on the first floor and then the corporate tower above that. This is a peculiar looking building. And one day I ended up deciding to add the Dangeles logo letters on the top of this. And I was thinking about moving it to another building, but I'm thinking I'm just going to leave it. I don't know. It seems like it has to stay now. It's been there for so long. So this building's been around for a while, and I really just kind of shaped around this block as we went. So after we finished the McDonald's building, I did take a little bit of a break from this area, and I moved back over here to the other side of the city and worked on these two towers over here. The exterior of these towers are done, and they're known as the Taylor Swiftness Corporate Towers, which is another company on this world, the Taylor Swiftness Potions. Two towers, just kind of, twins right next to each other with a sky bridge connecting them across. I really like these buildings, and I'm excited to do the interior on them because I think they have a great view of the ocean as well as some of the skyline of the city. So it's going to be nice doing the interior on those, but they've been sitting around for a while, kind of on the corner of the map. What I did was I actually didn't have a lot of space here to the to the left of the first skyscraper on the world. So what I did was I actually expanded the roads out because I had a little bit more space in the water, and it gave me a little bit of extra space to add a couple more skyscrapers on this side. So that worked out pretty nicely. So in case you're wondering what episode we're at, because we've been kind of rapid fire through this thing, we're right around episode 75 in the recap. So on episode 75, I did a Q&A session where I started working on the hospital of Los Angeles, and here is what it's looking like as kind of like a finished product on the exterior. The interior isn't quite done yet, but we've made some good progress on it. Like, we started off with the lobby for the emergency room and things like that, and it's coming together pretty nicely. The hospital has two sides of the road, so we have a big tunnel that runs across and connects to some more hospitality space on the other side. There's a little parking garage underneath here, and there's also an underground parking garage down there. All of that has been finished. And then the front of the hospital is on this side, which has a much more modern look to it right here. And I really like the hospital. I think it's one of the nicer buildings on the world. Once it's done, it's going to be a great part of the city. But we did get started on it on episode 75. So now I'm going to be moving on to the park of Los Angeles. Originally, we had a different park on this world, but we made a lot of changes kind of in the transition from the natural texture pack to the city texture pack. Ripped a lot of stuff down and ended up redoing this. So basically how this works is I have a river that runs right through the middle of Los Angeles with a couple of bridges. And then surrounding that is just a big roofed tree area, just a lot of natural designs to this place. Just tried to make it look like Central Park a little bit, just on a much smaller scale in the middle of the city, just to give it a little bit more of a natural look, so it's not all just skyscrapers and there's plenty of trees. So it's important to add a lot of trees in the city, even though there's a lot of skyscrapers. So I tried to do that throughout the build, just add as much trees as I could throughout the entire world. And this park, we spent quite a few episodes on it, so I, again, planted a bunch of trees. I actually built a little softball field over here, just next to the Eclipse Towers, which we're going to get to in a second. So I thought this was pretty cool. Having these softball fields here. It's just kind of like a little recreational area for the citizens of the city. We have some picnic benches as well, and this is just a really nice part of the city. I'm a big fan of this area. It was nice to finally add some natural parts of the city and add a park, and that's kind of how it turned out. So we're gonna fly right up over here to the area that I like to just slang call the Hollywood Hills. We should probably have a better name for it, but here it is. If you might be wondering, this house over here was actually originally started at some of the very beginning times of this world. I think I actually might have even built this thing in the default texture pack. The reason why I didn't mention it at the beginning is because I've made some serious changes to it. I optimized it for the city texture pack. I expanded the floor plan on it a little bit. It's actually fully furnished on the inside. As a matter of fact, all of the houses in the Hollywood Hills, all three houses are furnished. So we have just kind of three modern houses tucked away in the hills. I just wanted to add something to kind of like the hilly area right in the dead center of Los Angeles. Fun fact about this build right here is that it's actually in the middle of it is the 0, 0 coordinate. So this is kind of like what I like to call the central house, because it is the dead center of the world. So you have the huge city district right next to it here. And then on the other side, you have the Alpine Mansion and the rest of the neighborhood district. So that's kind of how it's looking here in the Hollywood Hills area. We added 3 houses here, as well as a tennis court that came along later. And this road kind of connects the city with the neighborhood, and there's a bunch of different ways you could follow the roads, but this is kind of like a direct path from the city to the neighborhood. So the Hollywood Hills area is pretty nice. I'm probably going to be doing some more expansion of this in the future, but over the course of the build, we've been kind of working on this thing for a while, and just it's been finished for a few episodes now, but I'm pretty happy with the final result, but I think we still need to do a little bit more work on it in the future. But guys, here's the Hollywood Hills. Let's keep on going. Moving back downtown, during the progress of the stadium, kind of like halfway through the progress of this thing, I wasn't quite working on the exterior a whole lot yet. I was just kind of getting started. I actually built a fast train that connects to the game, so you can take the train to the game. And this railroad has just like one of these like nice bullet trains. It's got the Los Angeles colors, the yellow, the white. And this thing is just a railroad that kind of like runs down underneath of the city, more or less like a subway that kind of comes up out of the ground. This is like the last stop, I guess, right in front of the stadium. So fans can, hop on the train in the middle of the city. This actually connects to a subway building way on the other side. We'll get to that in a little bit. And you can just get right off the train and go right into the game. So that's kind of how this works with the train. This was an important part of the city, so I just wanted to show it real quick, but now we're going to move on to something even bigger. So here are the Eclipse Towers. The Eclipse Towers kind of represent the century mark on this world. I started working on these things on episode 90-ish and really worked on them through episode 100. When I think of episode 100, it kind of reminds me of the Eclipse Towers because they were just starting to take some shape on the exterior. They've come a long way since then. I just recently finished the first Eclipse Tower completely on the interior, fully furnished. And I've gotten started on the second one. I got started with the lobby. The floors themselves haven't been put in yet, but We have one Eclipse Tower fully finished, and I decided to make 2 of them on the world. And this is, I think, the main part of the city, like the biggest staple in the city district. Just these 2 gigantic towers, the tallest towers in the world, just kind of, standing right next to each other, just looking all magnificent and grand. So the Eclipse Towers, a huge project. One of them is done, the other one's in progress. But I've been working on these things for a long time, and they're definitely some of my favorite builds in the city. So we're getting right around the episode 100 mark on the recap, guys. We still have so much more to show, so let's just keep on rolling. I did spend an episode or 2 working on a gas station and a bus stop for Los Angeles. These are some of the small things that you got to add to the city just to make it come to life. So we have a small gas station here, which is called L-Gas. The inspiration for this name is actually lags spelled incorrectly. So if you take L-A-G-S, you switch the A and the G, you have L-Gas. So it was kind of like funny that I found out the name for that. It was actually a spelling mistake. So I accidentally typed L-Gas instead of lags when I was writing a thumbnail or something like that. And or maybe a title, I can't remember what it was, but it kind of sparked the inspiration for the name of this gas station. Just a funny story that I like to tell. And we also have a bus right here which has an L on the side, and this is the LD Transit. You can take this thing around the city. All cities need buses and public transportation, so this is one of the buses that kind of just goes around the city picking up the citizens. That is really just me, sad face, but that is an important part of the city, the gas station and the bus stop, so it had to be shown. Moving right across the street, we have the Los Angeles Customs Building, another important part of the CLD 200 skit. This is inspired from GTA 5. It's basically just a mod shop in the city, and there's like a mechanic in here. So we have a bunch of cars being worked on and things like that. Really cool design. And another thing I think is awesome about this is the sign itself. So it's basically just a car on top of a pole. I think that was always really cool. And then above the Los Angeles Customs buildings, we have an apartment building titled Grandiose Apartments. It's done on the outside, but not finished yet on the interior like most buildings. But the reason why it's called Grandiose Apartments is because the top penthouse is shaped like a G. So I thought that was going to be a cool name for it. Most buildings, the first floor has some sort of use. Like, for example, on the other side of the city with the brown skyscraper, we have the bistro, and then there's apartment buildings above that. Same theme here with the Customs, Los Angeles Customs mod shop on the first floor with the apartment building above that. So that's kind of a theme throughout the city, having buildings that have multiple purposes. So here's Los Angeles Customs. We still have so much more to show. So after taking a break from this block of the city with these 4 skyscrapers, I came back to it and built an Outback Steakhouse. I tried to model it off a real-life Outback Steakhouse. So it's kind of funny that there's 5 skyscrapers on this block, and then right in the middle there's just a small little Outback. Just try to add as many restaurants to the city as possible. So there's been many of them shown so far, and this is one of my favorites because Outback Steakhouse is one of my favorite chain restaurants in real life. So I thought I'd add it to the city. That's pretty cool. And then right across the street over here, speaking of restaurants, we have this place right here. This is an Italian restaurant known as Papa's Pizzeria. It was referenced in the CLD 200 skit when Papa Lags made a cameo appearance. But this place is another one of those themes where there's a restaurant on the first floor and then some small apartment buildings above that. So we have an Italian restaurant here on the world. I like this because it has like these little Italian flag shutter things, or whatever you want to call these, up in front of the windows. I think that's a pretty cool theme. So there's just a couple more of the restaurants in the world, so we have some more things to show. So this building here has actually had a couple different themes. Originally I built it based off a building in GTA 5 to be a museum, but after building it I realized it probably wasn't big enough for a museum. So what I did was I actually changed it into a subway. So this thing is the subway I was talking about that connects to the train that takes you over to the stadium. It's done in the interior. It has kind of like a huge skylight of black stained glass and some solar panels and things like that. I think it's a really nice build and a good addition to the city. Originally it was a museum. It turned out to be a subway. I'm pretty happy with the design of it. So that's just another thing that we added here in the city district. Just next to the Eclipse Towers, we have a street of townhouses, kind of a Victorian style. We got a brown, a yellow, a blue, and a brick one. I like all of these. I started building these actually about a year ago. I remember building one of these on the 1-year anniversary of Los Angeles. So we've had these sitting here for a while. Again, not furnished on the interior. That's the theme of this whole video, I guess. But I really like these. I wanted to keep them. They're kind of just right across the street from the Plaza, which we're going to get to in a second. But these things are kind of just a nice theme in the world, just adding some Victorian houses and just some more townhouses and some more living spaces on the city if you don't want to live in a big apartment. So I really like these things, and we built all 4 of these about a year ago. Okay guys, so now we're going to start to get into the plaza, and this whole thing is kind of stretched out over a long period of time, so it might not be very chronological right now, because I know for a fact that I built the flower pot coffee shop before those townhouses on the other side of the street. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm not 100% sure, my brain is just going crazy right now trying to remember all this stuff, but I built this flower pot coffee shop, I believe, at the end of last summer. It's based off of a Starbucks in Walt Disney World, so that's kind of what that was based off of. It's done in the interior, and this was kind of the beginning of the Plaza of Los Angeles. So we have, again, we have the flower pot coffee shop here. We ended up building an ice skating rink kind of based off Rockefeller Center. We have some water features here based off the 9/11 memorial. We worked on this on episode 100. I ended up getting rid of one of them. I might get rid of the second one as well. I'm in the process of kind of rethinking the plaza because I'm not 100% sure how I want the final product to look. So this is a work in progress build right now. So it's looked a lot better previously. We've done a lot of different changes to this thing. I've added multiple different buildings that I've broken and replaced and things like that. So this thing has just been in a constant state of flux. But eventually this thing is going to be set in stone and it's going to have a really nice design. Again, I'm still in the process of trying to figure that design out. So we've been spending a lot of time in the city. Let's move out to the desert. So once we got past the century mark on the world, I decided to come out and start to work on this desert. And this was something that I was dreading having to work on because I was so focused on building cities, a skyscraper, the houses. I didn't want to have to come out and actually build boonies for Los Angeles. But I started off by adding the Block 12 Mining Company. This is a small little building that has a little bit of mystery to it. It's basically just a building with a bunch of mine shafts underneath of it searching for ancient hidden treasures. Not a lot is known about it, but it definitely has some secrets hidden below. After Block 12, I decided to add a trailer park out in the desert, so it's basically is what it is. It's just kind of like a campsite for some trailer parks. We got some RVs kind of just parked over here, so we have one that's actually updated for most recent blocks. So we have some acacia wood RV, and then we have one made out of quartz. And then this one over here is based off of the Winnebago from Breaking Bad. This thing has got the meth lab inside of it, and you have the smoke kind of coming out of it. So just a couple of small, Breaking Bad references. You got to have that on Los Angeles. So that was pretty cool. After the desert, I worked on expanding the highway and making it more suited for the middle of the city. And I also added the infamous Los Angeles sign. Obviously, it's a little bit based off the Hollywood sign in the Hollywood Hills of Los Angeles, but I have to admit, I really like this. This is one of my favorite parts of the city, even though it's just a bunch of letters. I think it kind of just like symbolizes the whole thing. You're coming down on the interstate highway, maybe coming from Danville, who knows, and you're just kind of flying down the road and you just see the big Los Angeles sign, and that means you're entering the city. And it just basically, this highway just runs straight down the middle of the city, and you can see everything on both sides. Once I kind of put this in, I was like really starting to think like, man, this thing is really starting to come together. It's really starting to look like a city, and we have the highway, the interstate running like pretty much straight through the middle, which is pretty cool. So the Los Angeles sign, as subtle as it is, it's a very important part of the city. So earlier I talked about how I moved the Tudor style house. Originally it was built over by the beach area, just north of the city, but I actually moved it because I wanted to completely scrap that area, build a beach, which is what I did. So out of the 3 houses in that area, the Tudor style house was the only one that I really felt like I absolutely needed to save because it's still one of my favorite houses of all time. So I moved it over here just outside of the neighborhood, just across the bridge and across the street from the Alpine mansion. So I think it's a great location for it. I managed to get it just on the other side of the desert, so it's not connecting to that ugly desert grass. I kind of modified it and changed it a little bit, optimized it for the city texture pack, added a better garage to it, and just overall improved the build. I think it's much better than the original. It has its own private beach as well, so really nice place, its own backyard and its own pool. So you're gonna have to be really rich to own this house, but I love the Tudor style house. This is a staple in the world, still one of my favorite builds to this day. Moving back into the city, I came back and built this building. This is another one of the larger buildings on the plaza. This is basically a technology company called Beacon Industries. So because it's a technology company, I decided to make the design of the building look very modern and sleek. So Beacon Industries, I guess you could say, is kind of like the Apple of Los Angeles, kind of like that. I guess you would walk around with your Beacon phones kind of in a role play for the city. So As you can see, it's got the beacon light coming out from the top. I think it's a pretty cool build. I'm still not 100% sure if I like the location of it. I might move it somewhere else on the map, but it's a nice modern looking building that I think is here to stay. And we're going to continue moving on, guys. So we've covered most of the parts of the city that you see behind me, and we're going to move on over to this side of the city, which involves the stadium. So right here is another building I started. A funny thing, this is similar to the subway. I originally built this thing as a nursing home, but then I realized that it's probably not wise to put a nursing home on the other side of a loud stadium. It's probably a lot smarter to put a police station there. So here is the police station of Los Angeles, the LDPD, as you can see. Right over here we got the sign LDPD. So we have like the evidence room in there. We have a bunch of offices for the commissioner. We have even a small little jail. So it's pretty cool. We have a lot of stuff inside of the police station, and from the police station, I started to move down and build some more things along this street. So like I said, after the police station, I added the firehouse. So this is basically the fire department of Los Angeles. Pretty simple design for a building. I have a couple of fire trucks on the inside, a place for the firemen to hang out while they're on duty, and a little reception lobby as well. So pretty simple building, but it's very important to have a firehouse here in Los Angeles, and this is the fire department of Los Angeles. Earlier I talked about how I broke down a bunch of houses, including the Tudor style house, to build a beach. This was a decision that was tough to make, but I think it was a really good decision. So here is the beach. It's basically just a small little beach, and it has its own pier as well in the northern part of the city. I think since this is kind of like a nice weather city, I guess you could say, it was cool to have it kind of on the coastline. So we kind of have a beach that gradually goes down into the water. It's pretty cool that I used the dirt kind of as wet sand. Have a bunch of beach mats and towels all over the place with some lifeguard stands. And we even have a little bit of a tunnel that leads back into the sewers of the city. So referenced in the CLD 200 skit, this was our getaway route. We have a couple of waves right here. These are like some custom built waves that look kind of stupid, but they're funny. And then I have a couple of jet skis going across the water as well. So here is the beach. We still have some more things to show with this, like the surf shack and the pier. So speaking of the surf shack, here it is. I came back and actually updated this thing once the stained glass came out, but it's basically just a small little building. I have some little totem poles out in front just to make it look beachy and cool. Basically, this would be the place I would sell like beach balls and beach towels and everything that has to do with the beach. So whenever there's a beach, you have to have some sort of surf shack close by. So this thing is just kind of right on the edge of the water, and it's a perfect location for it. So coming all the way back across the city, we have the theater. I've been working on this actually recently, last few episodes. This is a peculiar building, but basically it was the home for the CLD 150 special. It's just a huge theater on the interior with what is going to be a hotel above it. Still not 100% sold on this place, but it is a really cool building on the exterior and a great way to fill this plot just on the other side of some of the older stuff in the city. So here is the theater, guys. So obviously I can't forget about the stadium. This was a long-term project that started basically when we were still working the natural texture pack, and I finished it back in April. So this is, again, one of my favorite things in the world. This is probably my second favorite overall build in the world behind the Alpine Mansion. Did my best to optimize it for the city texture pack, but this thing took so much time and effort to put in. I think it's one of the biggest and most important builds on the world. The home of the Los Angeles Laggers. As you can see, we have the signs over here. Los Angeles Laggers. We got the big parking lot here. I really love the exterior of this stadium. I think it just turned out really good. I think it's pretty structurally sound. I worked so hard on this thing to make it perfect, and really proud of the final product of this thing. It took me over a year to build this thing from start to finish. It's an awesome build. My second favorite build in the world, like I said. And we cannot forget about this thing. So here is the stadium, guys, just one more time. Again, we have a full tour of this thing on my channel as well with a cinematic at the beginning. So most of the stuff in this world have tours on them if you want to look at anything in more detail. So that is a thing. And here's the stadium, guys. So we still have a few more things to show. We're getting kind of close to the end now in terms of everything on this world. So let's just wrap this up. So while I was finishing up the stadium, I was actually working on a car dealership, and you guys voted for the name. We were come down to a couple of options like Cadillac, but we ended up going with Mercedes-Benz, which I think is awesome. So here's the car dealership for Los Angeles. We have 3 different car designs for this place. We kind of have like a low-to-the-ground sports car, like a luxury vehicle. Then we have kind of just like a normal car, which kind of looks like a sports car, but it's supposed to be kind of like a sedan or something like that. And then we also have the mini car as well. So this is like the Benefactor Panto from GTA 5, one of those little smart cars. So here is the car dealership on this world. I think this is a pretty cool addition, just on the other side of the street from the stadium and right next door to the firehouse. the car dealership of Los Angeles, Mercedes-Benz. So back over by the beach area, we have the skate park and the basketball courts. This is just kind of like another one of those like urban-looking parks, but I have it right across the other side of the beach. I really like the way this turned out with the skate park and the basketball courts, and we have the little orange wool blocks as the balls because everything is square in Minecraft. So this was a cool addition to the world right across the street. It was always tricky for me to kind of figure out what I wanted to do with this space, but I'm pretty happy with the final result of this park with the skate park and the basketball courts. So after finishing the skate park, I moved on to the pier of Los Angeles. Made it small and simple. It's not supposed to be anything crazy like the Santa Monica pier or anything like that. I did add a Ferris wheel to it and some food stands. So we have a couple of little food stands here, and we also have a flower pot coffee shop stand here on the pier. It's not 100% done yet. It's about 90% done. I still going to add a few more little food stands and things like that throughout the thing. Maybe some mini games or things like that you would find on boardwalks. But it kind of just runs out over here, out into the ocean, pretty much right to the edge of the map. There's a good chance I'll expand this thing once I switch over to Xbox One. But I'm really happy with the pier. I think it's a great addition to the world, just right on the edge of the beach. It kind of shapes the beach. I think it's a great addition, and I love the Ferris wheel at nighttime. The Bedrock Tires factory has been a recent addition to this world. This thing's actually completely done on the exterior and the interior. I'm going to be doing a full tour video of this thing very soon. This has been one of my recent projects that I finished. So basically it's just a huge tire factory in Los Angeles and kind of like the industrial area next to the stadium, things like that. It's got a whole parking lot in the backyard. A little bit of pollution here and there with the Bedrock Tires factory. Maybe not the most regulated place in the world, but it is pretty cool. So this thing's completely done. This is one of the projects I've been working on most recently. And Bedrock Tires Factory will have a tour for it soon. Nice building, built out of acacia wood. Started to use some of the new blocks and things like that. I think I started this thing on episode 196. So it's, again, one of my most recent projects. Alright guys, so last but not least is the Desert Diner. This place is called the Locomotive Diner. It's basically just a old rundown diner in the desert. It has kind of like an old shutdown locomotive connected to it. So this is something I've been working on in the 200s. I actually started this thing on 199, I believe, and I finished it up on episode 202. So I really like this build. I think it turned out really, really good. And this is going to be the last thing I'm showing to you guys today, the Locomotive Diners. So with that, guys, I think I've shown everything on the city that is that needs to be shown. Obviously, some of the secrets will be remain secret at this time. But I think I've shown everything from start to finish as much as I can. Obviously, there's some more small things like the helicopters and things like that I didn't get to. And I guess the Redstoner gas station out in the desert is something I didn't mention. But I think I referenced everything in the city. Tried to go through the history of this world in a chronological order. Again, I didn't show a lot of the interior stuff because that's what I've been working on for the last like 7 or 8 episodes. But that is it, guys, for episode 209. We did a full recap of this city, and I am starting to lose my voice, that's for sure. It's amazing the history of this city and how far we've come through 209 episodes. This thing is really starting to look like a full city, and I'm just going to keep on grinding away at it, getting some of these interiors done. I think, as you guys may have noticed, a lot of the theme of this video is me talking about how exterior stuff is done and the interior still needs to be done. So that's really my main goal for the future episodes as we kind of wind down this thing and try to get this thing finished. So guys, that is going to do it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 209, the 2-year anniversary of Los Angeles. I appreciate all you guys who have been supporting this series for 2 years now since the beginning. You guys mean a lot to me, and all the suggestions and supportive comments you guys give me and questions of the day that just help me get suggestions for the world and things to do during the video is much, much appreciated, guys. You guys are awesome. So next episode was originally going to be the recap on 210, but I think I'm going to do just a regular episode for that, or possibly a 10-minute post-commentary episode. We'll see what happens, but the recap is done. We've covered everything, I think. I hope I didn't miss anything. Again, I didn't cover the things that have been broken, so there's a lot of stuff in this world. If you kind of like scroll through the playlist of all the episodes, there's a lot of stuff in this world that isn't even on the world anymore, since there's been a lot of changes throughout the history of this series. So I just wanted to stick to everything that's still here. So you can go back and watch the old episodes if you want to see some of the stuff that isn't here anymore. But thanks for watching, everybody. It's been Dangeles. Give it a like if you did enjoy it. I'll see you guys on episode 210. Peace out.